Good evening, and wow, it's beautiful drizzly. Well, not exactly drizzle, but there's a moisture coming down, and I don't think it's coming from the water fountains. Not that windy. It's a little breezy this evening, but yeah, it's feels good. Feels comfy. Feels like I should be back on the bike, and. Wow, today have been two resignations, two politicians resigning. And you might say, well, even more should. Well, that's not what this is about. Governor Cuomo, August the 24th, he just, with all the stuff that he had done, he was not good for the Democratic brand. A year ago, he was considered presidential material, but today he resigned. Here in Manitoba, Premier Brian Palliser. No big secret that he was going to resign, but when it does happen, it's yes, it's significant. He hasn't said when his last day will be, but someone tells me that there's a leadership committee being formed by the caucus, PC Party caucus, and hopefully there'll be a new leader in place, according to my source, by the end of this year going into 2022. Boy, doesn't that sound strange. You know, I have a credit card, my debit card, expiry date, 2026. Can you imagine? That's 5 years from now. I'll be 80 years young if the Lord should tarry and continues to keep me here. Yeah, so I'll just continue to yeah, that's significant. So Brian Palliser resigning means that they've got to pick a new leader, and the speculation begins as to who that leader will be. There's all kinds of ideas, and I'll leave that speculation up to the speculators. Suffice it to say, Brian Palliser has resigned as the Premier of Manitoba. The key thing is, and some may say, well, it's going to be a rough road for the new Premier. Well, that person who takes on the role and wins the leadership has that opportunity to be Premier of Manitoba, at least for a year and a half or thereabouts. So it'll be interesting as to what will be taking place. Of course, Mr. Webb Kinew is chomping at the bit to take over as Premier of this province. Well, we'll see what the people of Manitoba have to say to that. It's still drizzling just a little bit. And you know what? To have rain 2 days, 3 days in a row would be something awesome. And I just hope and pray that will continue to rain. You know, we had all kinds of rain watchers. I'm part of a couple of groups. One is a hog group on WhatsApp. Another one is Canadian Agriculture, is dealing mainly with the grain producers from around the world pretty well. And, you know, the rain gauges were out last night. In fact, I was going to see who I could deputize last night to stand by the rain gauge and give me updated reports as to what was going on. Well, my good friend John and Helen Friesen have a trusty rain gauge, and when John says 1.6 millimeters, it's 1.6 millimeters, let me tell you. Well, yesterday he said, praise the Lord, it's 27 millimeters right here in the city of Winkler. That's nothing to be sneezed at. I was on CJOB radio, and you'll be able to listen to that report here later on once I post it. But first and foremost, of course, they said, well, this rain isn't enough, and does it do any good? I says, absolutely. Number one, it wets the grass, it clears the air, and thirdly, it changes the attitude, the spirit. I talked to a cattle producer, Tom Tycrope, from Langruth this afternoon, and I says, you know what, doesn't it lift? He says, absolutely. He hadn't even thought about it that much, but it certainly does. We take so for granted. It's a wet year, and several wet years, the rain comes almost on demand, but this year it's been like pulling teeth. Well, we're not in charge, so I won't call it that, but I just said it was almost like. And but it's it's an interesting phenomena. One farmer in Saskatchewan on one of the groups said, yes, he had combined his peas, and they were doing, or faba beans maybe, doing really well. It's probably one of his best fields this year as far as crops was concerned. Well, he did half with the combine, and the hailstorm took the other half. So it's an interesting time. Gilbert Sabarin, St. Jean, sent a video a couple of days ago where he had walked across the Red River, just absolutely very little flow. And he too had rain gauges out at the different farms. And so if you take a look at the rain amounts that I have seen, we go west to Manitou, probably a low of 9 millimeters. There were some areas that had even less. And then we had some areas north of Killarney towards, Ninette and Pelican Lake, almost 3 inches. East here to Altona, Altona proper, I think at 2, northwest about 2.8. And then you went up to east, to Steinbach and that area, a lot of 2 inches plus. And, city of Winnipeg, I think, had 1.5 inches and so forth. So a lot of its areas in between, just like all summer, wherever the rain falls, that's what somebody called the jackpot. Well, this particular rain was just a bit more overall than any of the other rains that we've had so far. So praise the Lord for the rain. I am happy to hear farmers thanking God for it. And, it's like one farmer from North Dakota said on this chat group. He says, you can do everything right. He says he put everything into his pasture that he absolutely could to control the weeds, to hasten the growth, and all those kinds of things. But the one commodity that he had forgot about was you need rain. And so he sold about 1/3 of his cow herd, and he said, wow, was he ever thankful that he had? Because had he kept the entire herd, he wasn't sure what he would be doing right now. But he still had 200 cows and calves. So, that's a lot of mouths to feed, as the cattle people will tell you when it comes to feed. And then Ian Smith, just Argyle, Manitoba, north of Winnipeg, a small farm, but a good farm. And he too, he doesn't have that many cattle. He has a purebred shorthorn farm. He raises pigs and chickens and maybe turkey, I'm not sure. But he said, in Ontario, where he could have some bales. But he says the transportation would kill him as far as getting them here to Manitoba. It wouldn't make sense. He wouldn't make any money on selling those cattle later on. So those are the challenges that we have. It says the drought isn't over. Secondly, we have a water table that's about 32 to 36 inches down. So you get an inch of rain or 2 inches of rain. It's awesome. It's great. It helps the crops. And we have soybeans and some edibles, corn, sunflowers, and some later fields of whatever else may have been planted that can still benefit from the rain that we had this yesterday. But when you have to go down 33 feet down before you find any subsoil moisture on average, then you have a real problem. You just don't have that coming together of the moisture. I know earlier in summer, my brother had fairly significant rain up northeast of Plum Coulee and straight north of Horndean, and he says he thinks he had enough rain that it would join the subsoil moisture, and then that moisture just stays and lasts a lot longer. And in this other group, I've been listening to, reading and listening, to people talk about soil monitor systems, where people actually have. There's a company that I'm hoping to get a hold of, and we'll do an interview where they actually have, and I don't fully understand it yet, but where they have soil monitoring systems, so that they can know exactly how much that plant specifically is using and how much is available and how far it goes down to get more moisture and those kinds of things. Yes. And then this fella from North Dakota was asked whether he had kind of a system. Well, he said he didn't have those fancy Nancy Schmancy systems that they were talking about that cost a lot of money. He had some kind of a system that he could actually get a fairly accurate reading on his iPhone as to what exactly his plants were doing. You tell me about it. It's I used to stay up with a lot of this stuff, but I have backed off a little bit. I just kind of take that what's ready for the picking off of the fruit trees and run with that and continue to work as a farm journalist. Yes, I have the privilege of writing for the Ontario Farmer in Ontario, and the Agri-Post, that's out of Richer, Manitoba, a monthly here in Manitoba, and then the Prairie Hog Country, which is out of Leduc, Alberta. Laurie Brandley, owner, publisher, salesman, sales lady, and whatever else, and what a privilege. And I've been writing for that publication for 25 years. 20 years for the Agri-Post, and the Ontario Farmer. Well, I think some of my articles go back, maybe to the late 90s. So, and CJOB, it's been a real blessing. I told Jeff Currier today, he gave me 10 minutes to talk about farming and the situation that I had been able to gather from all the various farmers that I speak to and check with on a regular basis, and so I've been on with them. He gave me 10 minutes to tell the story of the farmer, one farmer at a time, and it's not like they're digging for dirt and those kinds of things, pardon the pun. No, they are looking for someone to help them tell the story to their urban listener, and that to me is a real privilege that they allow and invite me on to do that on a regular basis. Well, hey, I had no idea where I was going with this today. It's raining more and more, and my cab has got no windows, no door, nothing. So I can feel the moisture, but hey, I think my mother told me a long time ago, you're not made of sugar, stay out there, play a little longer. She wanted to finish the dishes or whatever that may be. So you have yourself a great and wonderful evening. Wow, what a blessed time. You know what? I'll sit here and just get wet, but I'll have to put my phone away. That one costs money. I just melt. And so take this day. Thank God for the rain. Thank God for your family. Thank God for Canada. Thank God for wherever you're living. thank him 100%. Somewhere, sometime, somehow, I will see you again. That is Seamans Says. God bless.